Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I'm running for Mayor of Abbotsford. The first thing I will do is remove the Abbotsford Police on the organized crime that took place in Abbotsford under Henry Braun owning the Abbotsford Police and owning the Abbotsford City to pass agendas for him and his friends. What took place in a democracy has to be called out. But what took place on my life was an attempted murder which was covered up by Abbotsford Police, and then blocked the municipal election to load Ross Siemens to finish the community business plan so Henry would stand to gain with his friends. Henry's son leaked that information. I want to thank the RCMP Commission for making me stand up. As Pierre Poilievre says, when you're knocked down, you got to stand up. Today I'm on Gladys Avenue. I showed you a couple of days ago a tower, 30-story tower, being fast-tracked over environmental studies and everything for Marcus Dalvis. Dalvis ran Abbotsford first, and he ran Ross Siemens. Now it's payback. Quantum Projects gets to the city council's favor to allow this 30-story tower, which is insider trading. Yesterday I showed you a video from Chilliwack on what was taking place on the ALR land. But here I'm on Gladys Avenue. I want to talk about all these rocks that have been hauled down here on the homeless to get them out of here. Number one, there's a major complaint that kids are playing in here, and there's a lot of needles in here, and because they're rocks, it's hard to get them hypodermic needles out, which now are subject to stabbing the kids. And any of them get stabbed at the city's Ross Siemens ordered these hauled in on your tax dollars, this stupid plan. It's to scam money out of the city coffers on these make-up projects. It took bylaw and it took Abbotsford Police for months to haul these rocks in here, when that there is the federal property of the CP Police. It belongs to the train. Anything belonging to the train is the federal government. We saw that when Henry Brown was using Mike Sear in the truck stops, pressuring the federal government in the province. But here, when they could steal money out of the city coffers, it was doing this. So I showed you in Chilliwack of how I was going to lower your taxes by bringing economic big drivers into Abbotsford on the ALR land that Henry was fast-tracking the stuff out of Riverside. When it goes into warehouse tilt-ups like he did on Riverside, that money goes into the city taxers to coffers that they can hold and steal like they did this on this make-up project. Convincing the community this was to get rid of the homeless, but in fact it's endangering the community because mothers are in the MCC shopping here and the little kids are climbing on them rocks and they're full of needles. That should have never been changed from blackberries, and now we got a bigger problem. So I want to make sure that them lawsuits, if these kids get hypodermic needles, should go right down Ross Siemens's trunks of his drawers and right after his gas station and everything, because now you're endangering the well-being of minors. There was no oversight. It was how can we scam the city? So in Chilliwack, I showed you that on the ALR land, that as mayor, that I would be lobbying for agriculture, cold storage, and all these things to rent to these big economic drivers to lower your taxes. That would lower your taxes. Here in Abbotsford, the first thing I would do is fire, as your mayor, all Abbotsford's people in the economic department. They would be all gone. Then I would go after the tourism people too in Abbotsford, and I would fire them because there's nothing they're not doing in Abbotsford. They're a bunch of fat people, in my opinion, real fat, that have been feeding out of the trough like pigs for months and months and months and months. And it needs a change, and it should have had a change. From mayor to mayor to mayor, they always keep these people because they're running them. Bruce Bamman used to call them bureaucrats, running from the back of the city. And they have done nothing to drive Abbotsford forward. Tourism, they just go look at them tulips all the time and nothing. But I would fire them, and I would take the Abbotsford property that's in ALR land, wasteland we would call it, that's sitting in the city coffers, and it's maybe 50 years to 100 years out before it's the zoning, like the stuff that was on Valley Road they were going to dredge. That's the city's property. I would take that land and I would create ag industrial on that, bring in revenue in to pay your taxes down. I would leverage off of that. That's called leverage, and I'd leverage off of that with these big economic drivers like Sexco, and bring Sexco in like Chilliwack did, and set that up to leverage that money to lower your taxes. This wasn't done because this scam to get money from the Abbotsford taxpayers and off your property at $4,000 to buy a new police building that we could scam for $71 million, kick it back through kickouts and cost overruns for another $10 million, and we'll have Vicky Hopes in the newspaper create a story like this. It's time Abbotsford became first. It's time our residents came first. We haven't had that since George Ferguson. I'm here to make sure that's going to happen. But I'm making sure that these rocks that were hauled in on your tax dollars that should have been consolidated with the federal, if there's a problem with the trains, I'd get the CP police in here as the mayor, and I'd say, now take care of that, fence it, do whatever you need to do. But this now endangers our youth. Henry Brown went into that city, changed and made sure the official community plan that stands to go for the next 10 years, him and his partners were going to gain. He started lobbying to Ron Funk of Diverse, the CEO of Diverse, which was his partner, Darren Braun showed me. All the properties in Abbotsford, the old newspaper site. Then changed the zoning from 200 to 400 units. Then the Kakera Ranch and the one over up by the old hospital. He was lobbying that. Henry knew when I was coming, a scandal on Ross Siemens would block him. If blocking him, that meant Manji Soy or Troy Gasper or I'm in, and he couldn't have that because the official community plan that he promised all these big developers that he lobbied into Abbotsford would change under the new mayors. So he had to put a change in that, so he put a block. He used the Abbotsford newspaper, Vicky Hopes and Ken, not to run the article about me. Then he used the Chamber of Commerce, Greg Toast, to make sure I couldn't get on the stage to the debate, because he knew that I knew all this, and I was smart enough to shut Henry's whole plan down. Then he used these guys, Abbotsford Police, in front of my house, in front of my jobs, and pulling me over, driving me, trying to get me out of that mayor election. When I consolidated with the RCMP, they knew my history and Henry's history never collided in the past. The only thing I was standing in the way of Henry's big, lavish dreams and his greed. But that greed came off the backs of Abbotsford residents that get in their cars at 4 in the morning, drive to Vancouver and come back and see your taxes increased for a scam like this. What Ross Siemens has done in the city of Abbotsford with Abbotsford First has only benefited Henry Braun. This wasn't benefiting Abbotsford residents, and it endangered the well-being of families. I will go after that ag industrial land. And I'll bring economic drivers in because we're close to the U.S. border, creating ag and creating, like Sepco, creating this to leverage off them pieces of property that are sitting in there. Cooper's Farm would have been a prime example. That would have never been snuck in on Sunday and covered up so he could get them developments. Them houses benefit Henry. When you're sneaking in on Sunday with your wife in the car to change your schedule and blame Peter Sparanese, your manager. But we got to go after city. And we got to go after them bureaucrats that have been getting fat and been sitting there. And we're going to financially, I told you, financially audit them. And that's what we're going to do with a good team. And we're going to get Abbotsford residents back on track to lowering your taxes, getting your city back, allowing your voice to count. We're going to create the Ditch and Dike Committee for our farmers, but we're going to forensic audit these people that Henry was leveraging and everything Ross Siemens been doing. And you could see by this 30-story tower promised to Marcus Dalvis, Quantum Projects. Marcus Dalvis was front and center in front of his office just down the road here at the Cague, running Ross Siemens' signs, and Abbotsford First and Dave Sadu. Now Ross Siemens owes Marcus Dalvis for that whole election. It's called loading. It's called bribery. I'm in. Now you owe me, Ross. I gave you a good chair, and you owe you. But Abbotsford residents didn't get the chance at the election of a fair voting election to see all candidates and who, because of a scam, Henry Braun. I made it clear when I stood up and started my podcast. I want everybody to hear this as I run for mayor. The sole engine behind all these scams and all these moves, even Ross Siemens' move by why he's got to keep Nancy freezing and listen, because he can't run and manage the city. You could see him, he never appears nowhere. It's only what they can promote for Ross, the Mackenzie Bog and everything. Henry Brown was the mastermind. He tied to Ed Fast, he tied to Mike DeYoung, the federal and provincial MLA, so he could clean it. Then he used the newspaper to shadow everything from Abbotsford, and he figured he was in the driver's seat. He used the Abbotsford Private Police on your tax dollars to go after Mo Gill, and when Mo said there was smoke, there was fire, he was meaning these stupid things that were being done. Needles to kids, no oversight, no nothing. Environmental studies gone, nothing, because it was favoritism. They believe if they can get the tower started, like down here at Sage, Ron Funk's, if we get the first and second floor in, nobody will come and halt it. As mayor, I'll seize that project. I'll sell that project off. I'll go after Ron Funk. I'll take it right back out of the ground because them are your tax dollars. That stopped you from having building permits because they were fast tracking it. Darren Brown took me by the hand and showed me that in the city. How his dad was using city people in the city to fast track everything, search the land, and then sell it and lobby these people. It wasn't making Abbotsford grow. Abbotsford wasn't growing. Abbotsford, the only thing was growing in Abbotsford is your tax dollars because of scams like these rocks, scams like the Abbotsford Police Department, scams like Cooper's Farm without in sight of widening the road, and all these scams. Henry Brown was a mastermind, and the only thing he was going to do was try to get rich, till his son told. When I went to stand up for Abbotsford, knowing that Henry had Vicky Hopes, through Rick Rakes and Tyler Olson, knowing the whole thing, I went to the best man that ever was, Bill Vanderzam, his people, and I asked him, Bill, please help me. Help Abbotsford residents. Let's make this on the world stage of these rotten men that are in the city fulfilling their pockets. City management. So I made it clear. First, I will go after the tourism office. They'll be gone. The economic officers in there, the economic whole department will be fired. That's $1 million. And I'll put them all into one, like they did in Chilliwack under Sefco, and I'll create that so that brings revenue into you, bringing you millions and millions of dollars next to the U.S. border in millions of dollars, lowering your property tax in millions. Then I'll go after things like the casino to bring them in, help the Abbotsford Airport, get it bigger, to get your water bill taken away from you and make them people pay the Abbotsford residents' water bill. Start giving you the breaks you live. But the first thing I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing written on my coat, in my heart, and everywhere will be to remove the Abbotsford Police. Men and women will be gone out of the Abbotsford Police. It'll become the RCMP immediately under my commandment. They were into organized crime, into the massive threatening people, blocking people in the election, covering up Henry's attempted murder, not talking to witnesses, smashing people's phones and cameras if you were coming through on their to come forward on their mob boss. Bringing Watts in, and now you can see the Abbotsford Police are no longer around. They used to run up time cards on the CP on the track here, going after homeless. They ran up the time cards sitting here where these walks. This needed to stop. It was way out of control. Massively out of control. And when you went to your MLA and your MP, it was threats on residents and threats on hard-working people's and families' lives before rich, greedy people. But Henry went into that city and he promised a lot of developers he could get this done. Start buying an official community plan. For the next 10 years, you'll be rich. That's going to change. That's going to change very fast. But we're going to go in after what Ross Siemens has been signing with Abbotsford First and everything they've been doing. When a man like Dave Lowens can go to Blue Ridge in broad daylight, take down my election signs off of private property and nail his up, and Vicky Hopes didn't put it in the newspaper, Abbotsford Police wouldn't charge him because Henry needed Dave Lowens in. That stuff's going to stop. That's going to change. So I'm live, ladies and gentlemen, today, down here in front of the MCC, and I wanted to show you where your tax dollars are going. We're going to start pulling that back in. We're going to start going after things like Riverside. Whether they get the building up or not, Henry's got this belief with him, Rob Funk, and everybody, because I've been talking to a lot of people on project. Once the building's up, you'll never get it. It's insider trading. It committed fraud. It used your city dollars to run these things. It bypassed bylaws and fines. You saw Ron Funk not getting any fines. The Abbotsford police weren't down there on dump trucks. And he's rushing that building, figuring if I can get it in, I can get it sold, I can get all this money. And now you can see this tower of Marcus Dalvis. We're going to go after them. This is your town. This is what George Ferguson stood on guard for. This is why before I went and saw George Ferguson before he passed away, he warned me about the greediness of Henry Brown. He said Henry Brown just couldn't stop. He needed that mayor chair. If I got in that mayor chair, so much could happen. Not for Abbotsford, for Henry Brown. I'm live, ladies and gentlemen, here in front of the MCC.